Welcome to Newsline Live, and you are watching On Point with me. And before I introduce you to today's On Point, let's take a quick look at the headlines. Climate activist Sonam Wangchuk breaks hunger strike after 16 days. MHA invites Ladakh civil society leaders for talks on December 3rd. Protesting junior doctors meet Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee at the Secretariat. India and China reach an agreement on border patrolling along the LAC. Centre to put hoax scholars on no-fly list after bomb threats to 100 flights. As air quality in Delhi worsens, moving from poor to very poor, stage 2 of the graded response action plan has been activated. JK CM Omar Abdullah condemns the attack on non-local labourers in Ganderbal. Supreme Court dismisses Arvind Kejriwal's plea in case over remarks on Prime Minister Modi's degree. Israeli forces storm shelters, detain men as North Gaza raid deepens. Blinken heads to West Asia as United States looks to kickstart Gaza ceasefire talks. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister in Chandrababu Naidu. Yes, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu on Sunday had said that his government plans to bring a law allowing only people with 2 or more children to contest local body elections. He also encouraged families to have more children, citing concerns of the state's aging population and its impact on India's demographic balance. Naidu warned of an aging crisis in South India, especially Andhra Pradesh, where the fertility rate has dropped to 1.6, below the national average of 2.1. He expressed concern that if the trend continues, Andhra may face serious demographic challenge by 2047. He also pointed out that many villages already consist primarily of elder residents, with younger generations migrating elsewhere. Naidu, once a proponent of population control, now sees the state's aging issue as a pressing concern.
మన జనాభాను కూడా మనం మేనేజ్ చేసుకోవాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది. ఇప్పుడు ఇవన్నీ జరుగుతున్నాయంటే 2047 వరకు మనకు డెమోగ్రఫిక్ డివిడెంట్ ఉంటుందంటే జనాభా యంగ్స్టర్స్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటారు. 2047 తర్వాత ఎక్కువ ముసలి వాళ్ళు ఉంటారు. ఇప్పుడు చాలా దేశాల్లో ముసలి వాళ్ళు ఎక్కువైపోయారు. యూరోప్ గాని, చైనా గాని, జపాన్ గాని అంతా ముసలి వాళ్ళు ఎక్కువయ్యారు. యంగ్స్టర్స్ తగ్గిపోయారు. ఇప్పుడు సౌత్ ఇండియాలో కూడా ఏజింగ్ ప్రాబ్లం వస్తా ఉంది. అంటే ఇక్కడ మీ అందరికీ ఆడబిడ్డలు చెప్తున్నా, జీవిత కాలంలో ఆడబిడ్డలందరూ 2.1 బిడ్డలకు జన్మనిస్తే జనాభా స్టేబుల్ గా ఉంటుంది. అంటే 2 కంటే ఎక్కువ పిల్లల కంటే, 2 కంటే తక్కువ కంటే జనాభా తగ్గిపోతుంది, ఎక్కువ కంటే జనాభా పెరుగుతుంది. కానీ ఈ రోజు మన రాష్ట్రంలో 1.6కి వచ్చాం, 1.6కి వచ్చాం. ఇప్పుడే -4% డెఫిసిట్ అయిపోయింది. ఇంకొన్ని రోజులు పోతే 1కో లేకుంటే ఇంకా తక్కువకు వస్తే అందరూ ముసలోళ్లే కనపడొస్తారు. ఇప్పటికే చాలా మంది మన పిల్లలంతా వేరే దేశాలకు వెళ్లిపోయి గ్రామాలు ఖాళీ అయిపోయి ఊర్లో వాళ్ళు పంపించిన డబ్బులతో భోంచేసే పరిస్థితికి వస్తున్నాం. భవిష్యత్తులో అది రాకుండా ఉండాలంటే ప్రతి ఒక్కరూ బాధ్యతగా గుర్తించాలి. మీరు చేసే పని మీకోసమే కాదు, దేశం కోసం కూడా, సమాజ హితం కూడా. ఏ పనైనా చేసి డబ్బులు సంపాదిస్తాం కానీ పిల్లలు కూడా ఉంటేనే, లేకుంటే జనాభా ఉంటేనే వాళ్ళ కోసం మనం పనిచేసే పరిస్థితి వస్తుంది. దీన్ని కూడా నేను ఒక ఉద్యమంగా తీసుకుంటున్నా. ఒకప్పుడు నేనే ప్రారంభించాను జనాభా నియంత్రణ. ఆ రోజు నేను అందరికీ చెప్పాను, మీరంతా ఎక్కువ పిల్లలు కనద్దండి, కంటే చాలా సమస్యలు వస్తాయి. నీళ్లు పెరగడం లేదు, గాలి పెరగడం లేదు, భూమి పెరగలేదు అని ఆ రోజు చెప్పాను. నా మాట విని మీరందరూ ఆ పని ప్రారంభించి 10 ఏళ్లలోనే జనాభాను తగ్గించేశారు. ఇప్పుడు నా భయం అంతా ఏంటంటే జనాభా పూర్తిగా తగ్గిపోయే పరిస్థితికి వస్తా ఉంది. ఒకప్పుడు 2 పిల్లల కంటే ఎక్కువ ఉంటే పంచాయతీల్లో పోటీ చేయడానికి వీలు లేదు, మున్సిపాలిటీలో పోటీ చేయడానికి వీలు లేదు, కోఆపరేటివ్ ఎలక్షన్స్ పోటీ చేయడానికి వీలు లేదు. ఇప్పుడు కొత్త చట్టం అది చేశాను, మళ్ళా ఒక చట్టం తీసుకొస్తున్నా. 2 కంటే పైన పిల్లలు ఉంటేనే మీకు పోటీ కరువులు. మీరు ఇప్పుడు 2 కంటే తక్కువ పిల్లలుంటే మీరు పోటీకి అర్హత లేదు. ఇదే మాదిరిగా భవిష్యత్తులో మీ ఇంట్లో ఎక్కువ మంది ఉంటేనే ప్రభుత్వ సహాయం కూడా ఎక్కువగా ఉంటుంది.
On Monday, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin echoed Naidu's concerns, urging couples to have more children, even referencing a Tamil blessing by suggesting 16 children instead of 16 forms of wealth. Stalin also raised concern over the possible delimitation exercise, which could reduce parliamentary representation for South states due to their declining population.
முன்பெல்லாம் செல்வங்கள் என்று சொல்லுகிற போது 16 பெற்று பெருவாழ்வு என்று சொல்லுவார்கள். 16னா 16 குழந்தைகள் அல்ல, 16 செல்வங்கள். ஆனா இன்னைக்கு நாடாளுமன்ற தொகுதியெல்லாம் குறையும் என்ற நிலை வருகிற போது ஏன் அளவோடு பெற்று வளமோடு வாழ வேண்டும் என்று சொல்லுவோம். நாமும் 16 குழந்தைகளை பெற்றுக் கொள்ளலாமே என்று சொல்லக்கூடிய நிலை இன்றைக்கு உணர்வு வந்திருக்கிறது. அதையும் நாம் மறந்துவிடக்கூடாது.
The upcoming 2026 delimitation exercise has sparked concerns in South India, with southern states fearing a loss of political power due to population decline. They worry about losing representation in both Lok Sabha and assemblies. Compounding this issue is the fact that southern states have consistently outperformed northern states in areas like health, education, economic growth. These states are also frustrated by what they see as unfair revenue sharing practices, with more prosperous states being shortchanged by other centers. Now let me straight away go to my guests. K.V. Prasad, Senior Journalist; Martan Kaushik, Senior Specialist, Media Communication, Population Foundation of India; and I'm also joined by Brijesh Pandey, Input Editor, News 9 Live. K.V., first to you, my question is the population curve an issue for Chandrababu Naidu in terms of the benefit of a big population, that you have large young population, or it's combined with the issue of delimitation, less resources, more seats to North India? Mr. Prasad, can you unmute yourself?
I am unmuted.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. No, Karthika, I think it's a bit of both. In fact, there is an issue which Naidu, we heard the clip, mentions about the aging population and the troubles and the woes of people of the state are going to face, and he compares it to, likens it to the population problem being faced by countries like China, Japan, and some in the Europe. Now that is on the social aspect of it. He also acknowledges the fact that he has been an advocate and promoting lesser children. And he says, today I am reversing my opinion. Now, delimitation, if you remember, Karthike, we go back into the year 2000 when the Vajpayee government was in power, and this delimitation idea had, because it was frozen in 75 to year 2000, southern states had come at that time, both Mr. Naidu as the chief minister and I think Karnanidhi as the chief minister, had petitioned the Vajpayee government the same issue, that why should the southern states suffer because they were implementing the population control policy A that led to decrease in population, include the human development indices on various counts which you just mentioned. But on the flip side, they will lose representation in terms of in parliament and other assemblies. So that is when, and now over the years, issues of resource mobilization, resource allocation have been heard off and on. So I think that's where it stands at the crossroads.
But then more than that, you are saying it's mix and match of both. But the fact is that there is a deep anxiety in terms of representation. You look at Ladakh, what has happened. Article 370, the revocation, has worked beautifully when it comes to Kashmir and Jammu. But in Ladakh, it led to a Sonam Wangchuk going for a protest, saying, and what was he saying, Prasad? He was saying, imagine when there was a larger assembly, We had MLAs, we had MLCs, more people representing the same area. Now the representation is down to one person. So obviously the representation is an important aspect of governance and projection of power, isn't so?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Stalin made no bones about it. He was very, very clear that why should we lose representation just because we have done better on these performances. But Naidu has hedged it. If you look at his words, he kind of projects it that 2047, you need to increase your fertility rate by 2047, otherwise it will be more of an aging society. So he did not really allude to the issue of delimitation, but as I mentioned, 2000, he was in the forefront carrying this campaign with Vajpayee government not to go in for delimitation. That is why Parliament at that time decided to freeze it for 25 years, kick the can down the road. And today again, we are on the cusp of the same issue. So this is definitely a political problem that has to be looked at. Also the social aspect that Naidu is trying to bring in now.
Absolutely, because very few chief ministers have spoken about the dividend of young population and the problem when you have a lot of aging population which China is dealing with. I am also joined by Martand Kaushik. Mr. Kaushik, a lot of people just see this issue in context of representation. Mr. Prasad was telling us about it. But in terms of the population dividend in young people, and when Mr. Naidu says that, a lot of old people would be there, how does that affect the economy? Can you just break down what Chandrababu Naidu has said? Because, he's touching upon a very key issue in terms of population dividend.
Yeah, so I think the issue here is more along the lines of we're trying to tell women what to do with their bodies, and that's something that has never worked historically. While I understand Mr. Naidu's concern and what Mr. Stalin has said, these are both very important issues, whether it's representation or we're talking about aging populations and dwindling youth populations.
Right now,
these are very important issues.
Martand, I'll come to the gender part of it. Right now, I'm not going into the gender part of it. I'm talking about the concerns. Can you please explain it, since you're part of the Population Foundation of India? Leaders in South Korea, Japan, China, Xi Jinping himself, now Mr. Naidu, they're talking about aging society. Can you just put it to our viewers in context of how does it affect the economy?
So that's something that can have a devastating effect on the economy. If you have an aging population, that's something that's being experienced across the world, especially in the West. And as you said, Eastern Asian countries and Southeast Asian countries as well. India too is not very far away from it. Different states are in different stages of demographic transition. The northern states are still having younger populations, and there's still some sort of population momentum. But when you come to the south, there is dwindling, there's a dwindling fertility rate, and aging populations are increasing. In fact, across India by 2050, India is going to have 20% of the population will be above the age of 60. So now that's something that we need to prepare, and preparing for an aging population, preparing for an elderly population, there's a lot of issues that we need to address for that. But I wouldn't say the responsibility should be on women to have more children. Rather, the policy that we need to deploy is that of active aging, better social security, better health systems. We also need to make it easier for women to balance their careers and balance their work with
is it correct to say,
motherhood.
Martand, is it correct to say that development and population implosion is happening simultaneously? Is it correct? I don't, like Musk has often trivialized this, there'll be a, population collapse one day. That is why I'm fathering so many children. That's a different sort of a spin and a narrative. But scientifically, is there a correlation between developmental indexes and lower fertility rates?
Absolutely. There is a correlation there. In fact, in this sector, people often say that development is the best contraceptive, especially when you're dealing with high fertility rates. But But when you have lower fertility rates, you have a different set of policies that can help you. So that's something that we need to acknowledge. There is a correlation. We need to acknowledge that having lower fertility rates means that we are developing well, means that women are more educated, means that women have better careers. So all of those things we need to understand and appreciate. And I feel both of these states, whether it's Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu, they've done an extremely good job, of investing in women. And there is a reason that fertility rates are down in these states and across the southern states.
Okay. How do you see two chief ministers of two different parties, of two different political spectrum, actually being on the same page? Babu, BJP alliance, and Stalin, someone who's completely opposed to it, but speaking on an issue which unites them.
Well, absolutely. This is one issue which has been plaguing many southern states chief minister, and Stalin has never made two bones about or never tried to hide his displeasure about the fact that that the southern states are being penalized if they if they lose on their representation, because nobody would want to lose their power or their decisive say as far as the politics of the country is concerned. Now, if you look into the fact that a new caste survey is done and the seats are increased to, which has been frozen since 71, are increased to 843, then it will be northern states which will have a more bigger and decisive states. If you win North India, you may have an absolute power in the government without catering to the southern states. Right now the situation is not like that, and this will be like losing completely as far as having a decisive say in the national politics, and this is something which no chief minister would want to. And if you ask me, there is a merit to it. They are the one who actually made this population control program a big success. And when Stalin says, or Chandrababu Naidu didn't say it in as many words, but when Stalin says that we are being penalized for following what was asked of us by the national capital, I think he has a very valid argument there. Because if it is all goes down to only one thing, that is the population is going to be the only decisive factor in the number of Lok Sabha seats you have, then why would any state would want to follow the population control measures?
Is it correct on my part to say, Mr. Prasad, that the disproportionate power which two North Indian states enjoy today will become an absolute power in terms of post delimitation India? Unmute yourself.
It's already unmuted.
Yeah. Tell me.
I said if the formula remains the same, that the representation is directly decided by the number of people, then there is no other way. The northern states are bound to get increased representation in parliament. And that's precisely, as I said, 25 years ago, this was the same argument that led to kicking the can down the road. Now 2025 has arrived, and very soon we are going to come up with another issue, which again has started being flagging by these two chief ministers. And I'm sure other two chief ministers from other states, of whether it is Karnataka, Telangana, are going to add voice to it, because this is an issue that is staring in the face, and political leaders will have to look at this problem. How are we going to deal with it?
But Prasad, apart from this, there's a dividend in terms of age, which we have spoken about. It's about representation, but there's third aspect also. Both these chief ministers have spoken about resource sharing issue also. The South chief ministers have been speaking about resource sharing also.
Yeah, that is because if you remember, post the center-state sharing of relations, now post GST, every day, every time we hear this. If you remember, just before election, the southern state chief ministers came to Delhi and held a dharna at Jantar Mantar. Yeah. So that was a symptomatic of this problem that they wanted to highlight before the national elections. Whether it becomes an issue or not, it was the unusual spectacle of chief ministers coming across and holding dharna in the national capital just as the budget session was beginning. So I think this is important, an issue. It's a serious issue. One has to look at politics apart. Everybody and will have to put their heads together and see what is the best solution, because the path of development was decided jointly, and some states worked aggressively to take you on the path of development. Now today, if that becomes what was a boon becomes a bane, surely they'll have to look for answers. That is what is staring at. That's what
which means, Mr. Prasad, that somehow the center will need to make up in context of money and representation for the South Indian states like Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala. If they are doing well in terms of socio-economic indexes, then I think they need to be compensated. I mean, so doing well requires a pat on the back.
Quite probably, taking what you say, taking it forward, there could be weightages given for certain factors, which already probably was part of the center-state relationship when they turned the ratio in the last Finance Commission. So I'm sure the weightages aspect may have to be tweaked to looking at these concerns. And obviously, when the new Finance Commission meets with the representatives of various states, some of these formula will have to be discussed threadbare, and then everybody will have to come on board, because that's one way where the resource allocation and sharing takes place. So I think those are issues, as well as a long-term procedure and process in place, which is already triggered by the creation of the Finance Commission.
Okay, Marthan, what is the difference of the age curve which we are talking about, North versus South, in context of fertility and in context of its own trajectory?
So both, whether it's the North or the South, they're both in different stages of what we call the demographic transition, where fertility rates begin to go down and life expectancy increases. So what happens is that you have a higher proportion of the aging population, you have a higher dependent population. That's a phenomena that we are starting to see already in the South. The North is still has a large youth population, and that's something that we're going to see for a while. But to address this, I think especially the aging population and the declining fertility phenomena, I think a lot of people have tried to do this, like Hungary or Russia or China. They've tried to tell women to have more children, and the fact is that can never work. That absolutely doesn't work. What you have to do instead is to reduce the cost of childbearing for women. That's something that's very important to do. That women have extensive public child care, that men are taking more role in household responsibilities. Those are things that are very important in terms of reducing the burden of child rearing on women. And when that happens, you can see that in countries like whether it's Sweden or Denmark, there has been some sort of a fertility rate reversal, where these are the only places in the world where fertility rates went down and then they stabilized and even came up, and even started reversing. So we need to learn, I think, from Sweden and Denmark, especially in the context of South India, and when we're thinking of policy making in Southern India, we need to understand what the global experience is, and we need to understand that this policy will not work without gender equality in mind.
Okay. So I think it's going to be a pretty vexed debate, Brijesh, because the money is involved, the representation is issue, and the future economy, because the dividend of a big population lies in the young workforce. If it becomes old, then you have an issue. And then there's an issue of representation, and then there's an issue of allocation.
Well, I think it's a mix of all, and that is the reason why the southern states are troubled, and quite rightly so. Because on all of these parameters you just mentioned, you require to have a decisive edge in all of them. And losing out one aspect of this entire situation which you summed out will be completely unfathomable as far as these states are concerned. You cannot penalize a state for outperforming or performing as per the national expectations.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I come from Uttar Pradesh, but the fact of the matter is that, yes, a lot needs to change, as far as fertility rate is concerned, but also a lot needs to change, or some new formula has to be devised so people don't lose out just because,
I don't think this debate is going to die down. I think it's an important debate. It's a good debate to have, because population is not only limited in terms of numbers, it's about women's right, their right on their own, on their body. And this is not an issue which is located in India. Internationally, in developed economies, people have seen implosion where the indexes have gone up and they have worked well. Well, how it pans out in India, we will have to wait and see. It's not an issue of day or two. It's something which concerns affects the larger economy, affects the larger society, both socially and culturally. I leave you with some of the political reactions, because this debate isn't going anywhere.
आंध्रा के संदर्भ में उन्होंने जो अध्ययन किया और उसके आधार पर उन्होंने बातें कही हैं, पूरे देश को अगर सामने रखकर हम देखें तो दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी आबादी का राष्ट्र हमारा हो चुका है। हमने चीन तक को पीछे छोड़ दिया है और क्षेत्रफल की दृष्टि से हमसे 3 गुने बड़े आकार का चीन एक ऐसा देश है जहां आबादी का घनत्व निसंदेह हमसे बहुत ही कम है। तो हम तो बिल्कुल जनसंख्या विस्फोट के कगार पर हैं। तो देश के संदर्भ में जब हम बातें करते हैं तो वैसी स्थिति में आंध्र और पूरे देश को अलग अलग देखना ज्यादा बेहतर होगा। जो जनसंख्या नियंत्रण को लेकर जागृति, लोगों को जगाने का काम या जो इस तरह से परिवार कल्याण के जो कार्यक्रम हैं उन्हें निरंतरता से चलाए जाने की जरूरत है।
Chandrababu Naidu said that you should have at least 2 children. Earlier we had lost 2 seats in Tamil Nadu. Earlier, before 71, it was 41 parliamentary constituencies. After 71, because of the population control, it had become 39. And during last time when reorganization of constituencies, we had asked the government of India to peg the number of constituencies. But suppose this government, if they were resorting to reorganization of constituencies, they will definitely reduce Tamil Nadu and increase UP. That is the thing. So, jocularly you might have said 16 children, it is not 16 children, 16 gifts. He was jocularly remarking here.
Massive growth of population will not help. India is already with the largest population after China in the country. So with the limited population, that control of the population is necessary. It shouldn't be encouraged in that way. But we have whatever forces we have, crores and crores of young boys are unemployed, girls, boys. We have to collect them, train them. We have workforce. So for workforce, you do not go for more people to produce, I think. It is a personal opinion.